Hi everybody. This is the video for Unit 3, which is about researching potential careers and making a plan. So what we're doing in this unit is really transitioning from what we've been doing so far, which is really thinking about more general sort of big picture questions about what you might pursue as a career. So for example, in Unit 2, you were thinking about what kind of role you might play, right, in whatever kind of career field you might pursue. Are you the person who's interested in, being the one who comes up with a big idea, or are you the person who wants to execute a plan? Do you like to work independently and have sort of total control over your work, or do you like to collaborate with a team? Those kinds of questions, right? And those are important questions to ask. They help you understand, again, what is satisfying to you in work in general, and what you think you're good at or could be good at. So we're going to move from those more general questions to, in this unit, really looking at specific career fields and how you can apply what you've been thinking about in terms of what kind of work or what kind of role you might like to play to a specific career path. Okay, so that's really the goal. We're still going to think about those sort of bigger picture issues, like what kind of a work life do you want to have? But we're going to also start looking at specific jobs and what it takes to get them, right, down the line. So that's our agenda for this unit, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Okay, so here is sort of the premise for the exercises and work you're going to be doing in this unit. I think of this as sort of a three-step process. And the first step is to think into the future about where you'd like to end up in terms of a career. So instead of what I think many of us often do, which is to think about what am I going to do next, right? Like I'm going to graduate this year for many of you. What job am I going to get, next year, right? Or in the next couple of years? That's also an important question, and we'll also work on that. But I'm asking you to not start with that question, but to start with the question of where would you like to end up down the line in 10 years or 20 years, right? Given that most satisfying careers take a while to build, right? You don't go directly from your undergraduate degree into that, end-all be-all job that you want. So where would you like to end up, all right? So one way of asking that question is what kind of career or work life do you want, okay? And toward that end, one of the things you'll be doing in this unit is filling out a career worksheet, all right? And this is precisely what I'm saying here, what you'll be doing on the worksheet, which is envisioning yourself many years down the road and thinking about what that future position would look like, right? And some of it is folding in things we were talking about in last unit, right? Do I want to be in a position where I have a lot of autonomy and I work really independently? Or do I like to work sort of in a closely regimented sort of organization where I'm, sort of engaging with other people on a timeline every day, right? So some of it is that more general stuff. But some of it's also like, what's the topic or what's the content? What's the field? What's the area, right? So the idea here is to start with that end goal and work backwards, right? Figure out where you want to end up, and then figure out, okay, what do I need to do to get there, and what's the plan for doing so, okay? So as I say, step one is going to be the work that is entailed in that future career worksheet. Step two, then, is once you figure that out, right, like I want to be in X kind of job, or ultimately my career goal is whatever, I want to be in this kind of position in 15 years, say. Then step two is to figure out, okay, you're going to basically reverse engineer it. How do you get to that, right? Does it take a certain kind of education or training? And if so, what is it? Does it take a lot of experience? Is it the kind of career where you need to sort of work your way up, so to speak? And how can I get that work experience? Do I need to start by volunteering? Or are there entry-level jobs I can get, right? And how much experience does one need? Are there certain kinds of achievements or other kinds of benchmarks that I would need, right? I put out there publications as one, right? If you're going to do something like an academic career, then that would be one of the things, right? So again, figuring out, okay, what is the list of requirements for that future job that I want, and what do I need to do to start to accrue those requirements or those credentials so that I'm in a position to be a competitive candidate for such a job in the future, right? So that's sort of step 2. And then step 3 is really getting down to brass tacks with figuring out that if you know, okay, here's where I want to go or where I want to end up, here's all the things I need to be successful when I get there, then starting to figure out much more specifically, okay, what's the timeline, right? So for example, if my goal, my career goal, requires that I get a master's degree, right? When do I want to do that? How do I want to do it? How much time is it going to take? If that career requires, 5 years of experience on the ground, can I get into one of those entry-level jobs? Where could I volunteer to start getting some experience, et cetera, right? If I need specialized training, like I need a certain kind of technical expertise, is there somewhere I can do a certificate to get that, right? All of these kinds of questions. So again, not just going, I think I'll just get a master's degree because I'm really interested in this subject, but going, what is the credential that I will need for that sort of greater goal down the line? Okay, so that's our sequence. Start with the end game and work backwards. You're going to start envisioning what that end game looks like through the future career worksheet. Once you figure that out, how do you get to that career? I'm going to talk in a second about the exercise you'll be doing in this unit to figure that part out. And then step 3, map it out. Come up with an actual timeline with specific benchmarks that you're going to meet. Okay. A few things to keep in mind throughout this entire process, throughout all these steps that I've just described. And these are just sort of general things that I think are important. One is, what I'm saying is balancing ambition and practicality. So what that means is, I think it's important to be ambitious, right? To shoot high, right? If you know you're really, feel really passionate about an ultimate career goal, I think it's important to recognize that and to go for it, right? And I think it's important to keep in mind all the practicalities of doing that, right? How mobile are you, for example, right? In things like training and career options. Are you willing to live anywhere, or do you want to live in a major city, or do you want to stay in the Chicago area, right? If it's crucial for you to stay around Chicago, again, just build that into how you map out achieving that goal, right? Doesn't mean you can't pursue the thing that you feel that passion for, but you want to start figuring out how to balance between that thing that's driving you and the practicalities of everyday life, okay? Number 2, even as we're going to be sort of mapping out a plan here, and I think it's important to sort of figure out in advance what you're going to do and how you're going to get to that. The fact of the matter is it's a moving target, and it's also important to be flexible and to adjust the path as you learn new things, right? So saying we're going to map out what you're going to do for the next 10 or 15 or 20 years doesn't mean that it's going to be, written in stone. It means that's a working plan, and you do need to stick with it. I mean, as I say here, persistence is crucial. So I'm not saying at the first setback you're going to abandon the plan, but I am saying that you also want to adjust over time as you learn new things and you have new experiences, right? Part of knowing how to and when to adjust the plan, I think, comes from getting in the habit of checking in with yourself frequently, right? And that's about all aspects of the process. I think it's really important as you start to set off on a plan towards or a path towards a career to ask yourself frequently, do I enjoy this, right? I thought I wanted to do this. Now that I've started doing it, do I like this? Is this fulfilling? Is this satisfying, right? Is this getting me where I want to be in life? Does this make me happy? Doesn't mean that any career path is going to make you happy all the time, right? Like, we all know that it's going to be up and down. But I do think it's really important, right? I mean, it's not uncommon to think you want to do a thing and start doing it and go, actually, I like this less than I thought. Or there's a piece of it that I really like, right? But I can actually do that more effectively in another field, right? So, again, this is a thing about balance, sticking with something, being persistent to pursue a goal is really important. And at the same time, pursuing it just because you started it is not necessarily going to serve you well. If you decide to change or adjust your direction, that's a good thing. It's a good thing to do that. It's a good thing to recognize that. It's much better to do that, even if it'll take a little bit longer and be a little bit less convenient, than to blindly follow a path to a career that ultimately you really don't enjoy, right? So I think, again, some of each, right? Balance. And the last little just thing to keep in mind is to check in with mentors, right? You've met professors, you've met, I'm sure, people in your work lives and volunteer lives and elsewhere. Being able to continue to engage with people about what you're doing, and just to sort of even have somebody to use as a sounding board when it comes to making decisions, or somebody who's actually in the field you're pursuing who can give you advice, all of those are really crucial. So I encourage you to continue to do that as well. Okay, so I already talked a little bit about for step one, which is figure out the end game, right? For that, you're going to be doing the future career worksheet. It's on D2L, so you can go ahead and take a look at that. It's really, again, asking you to fill in a worksheet where you reflect on the different aspects or elements of that future career goal, and sort of talk about what those elements look like and how important each kind of element is to you, all right? So that's the exercise that you'll be doing in this unit toward that step one. Towards step two, which is, again, figuring out, okay, now that I know what the end game is, or the goal, what do I need to do to get there? For that step, what I'm asking you to do is the assignment that is embedded in discussion 3, okay? And these instructions that I have up here on the slide, they're in the discussion, so you don't have to take this down, but just wanted to make sure that you're clear and give you a couple of ideas about how to actually do this. So for this discussion 3, I'm asking you to actually go identify job postings relevant to or that are examples of that career you'd like to pursue. So you can actually see what is required to get that kind of a job. Again, so not jobs you could get right now probably, but jobs you'd aspire to in the future, so you can figure out, well, what do I need to do to be a candidate for one of those? So I'm asking you to take a few steps in this discussion assignment. So the first is to find a website for a professional organization that's relevant to your career goals. I want you to find such an organization. I want you to actually post the link to that organization. I'm going to show you a couple of examples in a minute. Basically, any field, any job field, there are organizations that are sites for resources and communication among the people in that profession, okay? So if you just, get on Google and look for a professional organization in field blank, you will find examples of that. So I want you to find one of those and post the link and take a look at what that website actually offers, all right? Step 2 is through either that website, right? Many of those professional organization websites also have job listings, right? So if you find one that already has the information, you can go ahead and use it, or you can use any other job site or website. And again, I'll give you a couple examples in a second, to find at least one job posting that represents your career goal, okay? So again, not a job you can get right now, not an entry-level job, but the job that would be sort of your dream job for the future, where you'd like to end up down the line. And I want you to post the link for that job posting if you can, or if not, at least a description of the job that you found, right? The link is easier if you could do that, so we can actually look at what it looks like, right? Step 3 then is that I want you to, again, within that posting, or you can just copy and paste it into the discussion, I want you to identify within the ad what the requirements for the job are, okay? So if you're doing a screenshot, you can sort of highlight it, or you can just, again, copy and paste it into the discussion. Identify within the job what are the requirements for the degree, right? Job ads will typically say you need X amount of education, right? You need a bachelor's degree, or you need a master's degree, or you need a PhD, or you need 5 years of experience in the field, or you need training in this, or you need to be bilingual, or whatever the things are, right? All the different things. You need to have, excellent writing skills. There's usually a whole laundry list of things they say. These are the qualities and the credentials that we're looking for in our candidate, right? So that you'd know whether you should apply or not. So I want you to find those in your chosen dream job ad, okay? And I want you to put that also in the discussion. And then the last part of the discussion is to reflect on that. So I want you to answer the question, what steps will you take over the next several years toward achieving those long-term career goals? And of course, you'll also be engaging with other students about this, all right? So again, this is, it may feel like, well, how do I know? Well, I mean, part of it is to start checking it out and figuring it out, right? I'm not going to make you actually, stay the course until you get this job. This is an exercise. But again, the main point here is to start thinking about where you'd like to end up so you can work backwards from there. So let me show you a couple of examples then of the kinds of websites that are relevant to this exercise I'm asking you to do, okay? And again, you can, I'm also posting this PowerPoint, right, in addition to the video. So if you want to actually use some of these links, you can. But these are really mostly sort of examples, and you can probably find some that are more specific to what you want to do. So I found a couple of examples of, as I mentioned, professional organizations have websites where they have lots of resources, including job postings. So I found a few examples. I'm an anthropologist. So the ones I pulled out here are ones that are relevant to students interested in anthropology, although not exclusively. And so this is, again, just an example. So you're going to be looking for these for your own area of interest. But let me show you what I found. So this one is the major professional organization for anthropology. And again, it's a website that has, all kinds of stuff in it, but the part that I included the link to is sort of the job part, right? So as I said, professional organizations have often a job posting area. So this is the sort of career part of the American Anthropological Association's website. So you can look at jobs, you can post your resume. There's also, this is for, people who are putting up job ads, right? But if you were interested in a job as an anthropologist, you could, again, go to this website and click on the link and see what's available. Now, anthropology, as it happens, most of the jobs in the field of anthropology are academic jobs, right? So most of these are going to be jobs for professors, right? So I'm not saying that that's what any of you is particularly interested in. This is just one example, right? In other fields, you're going to find a mixture of, maybe some of them would be academic and some of them would be, for practitioners. Anthropology, as it happens, there aren't a lot of non-academic jobs, right? So most of these, as you see, are for, assistant professor of this, assistant professor of that, okay? So again, just one example. So let's go back to our list here. So that's one professional organization. Here's another one. This is for a museum, a professional organization for people who work in museums, right? And this particular website has a lot of advice for entering that field, which is really great, in fact. So it's sort of a career guide for pursuing museum work, right? How to do it, how to pursue it, what you need to do, etc. So that is especially useful. And then they also, again, have job postings, right? So you can look at jobs as well as, sort of get advice. So if you want to actually see what the job postings look like, again, this is in the sort of sector of museums. Museum jobs are a little bit more, in the anthropology postings I just showed, like 90% of those are like professor of this, professor of that, right? In museum work, it's more complex, right? So there's more different kinds of jobs, so here's one that is Director of Education and Public Programs, right? And this is at a museum at Duke University, right? It's just a random example, right? But this is the kind of thing we want to check out, right? So the way this particular job site works, here are some of the key requirements, right, or credentials. So, in fact, you don't need beyond a bachelor's degree, but they want 5 to 7 years experience, right? And they go on to talk about specifically what you'd be doing and what they are looking for, right? So, again, if you're interested in museum work, for example, reading a bunch of these job posts would be super important, both to figure out, well, gee, how much schooling or how much experience do I need? And to see the kind of the titles for the different kinds of jobs, right? That will give you a better sense of how work is organized within the museum sector, okay? Again, just an example. And here's a final example of a professional organization's job site, or the job part of their website. This professional organization is the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. Again, I put this up just because this is an area that overlaps in some ways with anthropology, and some anthropology students are interested in. So the American Academy of Forensic Sciences is a professional organization, and they have a job posting site. So if you're interested in forensics, right, here's a whole bunch of different kinds of jobs, right? And they're different from one another. You could be a DNA examiner, or you could be an administrator, right? Here's one for a forensic anthropologist, right? But that's actually a PhD level position, right? So if you want to be a forensic anthropologist, you need to be prepared to get a PhD to do so. But if you don't want to do that, but you still want to be in the forensic sciences, there's a lot of other things you can do, right? So again, this is exactly why coming to one of these sites, reading a bunch of these ads, right, and figuring out, which of these sounds like something I'd like to do in the future, and what do I need to do to get there, okay? All right, so those are, again, just some examples of professional organizations. Now, as I said in the instructions for the discussion, you can use whatever, I do want you to find a professional organization. You can use that site as the source for your dream job, or you can use any other. And there are, as I'm sure you know, lots of other websites out there that post job listings. So feel free to poke around. And here, again, just a few examples. This is a site for U.S. government jobs. It's called USA Jobs. So if you're interested in figuring out jobs, in the public sector, this would be a place to look. And again, they have jobs in all kinds of fields. So that's, again, just a sort of a more general job site you might look at. Glassdoor, again, really broad. I'm not going to go ahead and log in. I have an account with them. You can get a free account. It's an easy way to look for jobs, but there's a bunch of these sort of more generic kinds of job sites. Feel free to look at one of those as well. And then the final one that I thought I'd share is, which again is something that a lot of anthropology students are interested in, but I'm sure others as well. This is a website it's all jobs with non-governmental organizations, so particularly in, for example, international development and relief. Some of these are sort of ongoing jobs, some are consultancies, but if you're interested in doing a sort of humanitarian service kind of job, then this might be a place to look. And some even, here's one that's an internship, right? So again, NGO Job Board is another one, just food for thought for those of you who might be interested. The final thing I put on this slide is a site that is all internships. And this is not for a source of your dream job, right? Because I don't think probably any of you dream to be an intern long term. But I put it up here because I thought this would also be food for thought. Again, as you look at the job postings for jobs you do want, for those that say you need 5 or 7 or 10 years of experience to get that job, understanding how you can get that experience is going to be one of the next things you're going to look at, right? So one of the ways to get experience when you don't yet have the credentials to get employed in that area is to volunteer or intern, right? So it can be a really important, really valuable way to sort of get your foot in the door so you can start accruing the experience you need to get the job you want down the line. Okay, so I put that on the slide again, just as food for thought. So that's really the sort of the game plan for this unit. So go ahead and again, I have a couple things for you to read that are about that same idea of thinking to, where do you want to end up, and then sort of working backwards from that, and then starting to figure out a specific action plan for taking the steps to achieve all of those credentials you need for your chosen career, okay? So we're going to work through all of those steps in this unit over this coming week. And I think this is one of the most exciting parts of the course and of this process, because we're really starting to try to turn your understanding of who you are, what kinds of things you want to do, what kinds of abilities and skills you have, turn that into a specific plan that you're going to take for the next number of years to get where you want to go and to be have the kind of career that you ultimately want to have. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with for both of the exercises and assignments for this unit, and we'll talk again soon.